Hey there, PTHS. This is your instructional coach, Larry Suarez, and today I'm going to guide you through the Chromebook crash course. We'll talk specifically about the Asus Chromebook Flip that you've either received recently or will receive sometime in the near future. And then I'm going to give you some tips and tricks to use on really any Chromebook that is out there. So if you happen to be using your device right now, I would recommend that you pull this video up on a different device, or that you get ready to pause the device when we get into some of the activities, because I would love you to follow along with what we do so you get a little bit more familiar with this before you start using this in your classes. So some things you'll notice right away about this device is how thin and lightweight it really is. It has a beautiful, easy to use touchscreen that allows you to not only write and draw, but annotate images and documents right on the screen. This device also allows us to install Android apps. So if you're familiar with iPads or the Apple App Store, those same apps are going to be available for this device as well. Asus claims that this also has a 10-hour battery life. I would say it's probably longer than that. So I've been using this device the past couple of weeks, and I can get about a day and a half to 2 days worth of battery life out of a single charge. It also has a backlit keyboard, which works really nicely if you're in low light settings or working on something at night. Lights up the keys so that you can see them really easily. And one of the coolest features is a 360-degree hinge, which means that the screen can bend all the way backwards pretty much onto itself, which gives you a number of options for how you can use this device in the classroom. So if you take a look at the side of the Chromebook, you will see a couple of ports. On this side, there's a USB-C port, which can be used to charge the device. It also has a micro SD card slot, which are the same kind of chips that you would use in a digital camera or a cell phone. It just provides you with a little bit of extra storage if you need it. And finally, you'll see a vent for one of the speakers. On the opposite side, you'll see the same type of USB-C port. Now, it doesn't matter which one you use to charge the device. They will both work exactly the same. It also has a charging indicator light that lets you know that the device is actually being charged. There are a couple volume keys and a power button and a headphone jack, and finally another vent for the other speaker. One thing you might notice about a Chromebook is that the keyboard is a little bit different than a typical PC keyboard. So if you take a look at where the F keys or the function keys typically are in a keyboard on that top row, you'll see that Google has removed those keys and has replaced them with some shortcut keys that I think you'll find a little bit more useful. So the first one you'll notice is the back arrow or the back key. And that does exactly what you think it does. It takes you back to a website that you were previously on. The forward button does exactly the opposite. The refresh key reloads any site that you happen to be on. There's a full screen key, which typically removes the menu items and makes a document or a website a little bit easier to see. You would also tap that same key to get out of full screen mode. This is what's called the overview button. Some people refer to it as the switcher key. So if you tap on that button, it gives you a kind of a bird's eye view of a couple of the windows that you have open so that you can select them just by going over and clicking on those. There are two buttons for brightness to change how bright the screen is. And there are three keys that deal with the volume levels. Finally, on this top row is a lock button. So if you hold this button down, it will lock your device and prompt you for a password to log back in. You can also hold this button down and power off the device as well. One other key that you might notice is different is this search key. So in place of the caps lock key, sorry people that are fans of caps lock, Google decided to replace that with a search key, which I think is far more useful than the caps lock key. So if I tap on that magnifying glass key, you'll get a real quick Google search bar that works just like if you go to google.com and type in a search. So you can look up websites, you can look up really anything, but what I really like is the ability to do some really quick math or to look up a word, like define the word gravity, and it gives you a definition of that. So there's some really good uses for that search key. So I really don't miss caps lock. But if you do, I have a pro tip for you. And if you hold the Alt key and then hit that search button, you will turn caps lock on. So up next, we're going to talk about gestures. So when we use gestures, we're typically talking about using 2 or 3 fingers as kind of a shortcut to a way that we would be using the touchpad or a mouse on a traditional computer. So here, the first one that I'll talk about is the 2-finger swipe up or down, and that allows us to scroll. So if I go on a website, I can take 2 fingers and it doesn't matter where my mouse is, I can scroll up or down that site without having to go all the way over to the right and grabbing that scroll bar. The next 2-finger gesture we have is a 2-finger swipe left or right, and that works just like the back arrow or the forward arrow. So I can swipe one direction and it takes me backwards. I could swipe the other direction and it takes me forward. Another gesture that we have is a 2-finger tap, and that does exactly the same thing as a right click. So here I can tap on that picture and I get the context menu of all the different options that I have just by 2-finger tapping. So now we have a few 3-finger gestures. So this is a 3-finger swipe up or down, and that just puts us into that overview mode. So that kind of bird's eye view of what windows you have open. There's also a 3-finger swipe left or right, which allows me to easily switch between the tabs at the top here. So instead of dragging my mouse up to the top and then clicking on the tabs, which does take me some time, I can just take 3 fingers, it doesn't matter where my mouse is, and I can just move my 3 fingers left to right and very quickly and easily switch between the tabs. And I got to tell you, I love this gesture. It's probably one of my favorites that I have not seen on other devices. I've only seen that on a Chromebook. So I love it, and I think you will too. The next gesture is a 3-finger tap. So the same thing as that 2-finger tap, but a 3-finger tap allows me to open links in new tabs, and it also allows me to close tabs. So if I'm on my website here, I can open these 2 pages without leaving this original page. It just opens up in separate tabs up here. So I can go up to that tab and take a look at that information, and I can also look at that information. And I can very easily switch between them, again, with a 3-finger left or right. All right, and if I want to close these tabs, instead of searching for that teeny tiny little X, I can just take 3 fingers, go up to the tab, and tap. And that will close those windows or those tabs very quickly and easily. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the shelf. And the shelf is this area down here at the bottom of our screen. It starts with what's called the launcher, which is similar to what we would refer to as kind of the start button. But when you click on the launcher, you'll see that it opens up pretty much the same window that we saw when we clicked on the search button on the keyboard, the one that replaced the caps lock key. So it allows you to do a quick Google search here, and then it shows you 5 of the most recently used apps that you've used. But if I click on this arrow here or 2-finger swipe up, it will show me the rest of the apps that I have installed on this device. So right next to the launcher are some little shortcut icons that we have there to get you to some of the more commonly used apps. Now, if there are some that you don't use, like let's say you don't use Sheets very much, so I can right click on that and I can unpin it. So it will make the icon disappear. It does not remove it from the device. So if I go back into Launcher, I can always repin any app to my shelf, and then of course I can reorder it in any order that I want. So I'm going to show you a trick or something that I see as being super useful. So if there's a website that you use all the time, let's say the Pemberton Township Schools district website, I can go up to the three dots, go down to More Tools, and then click Add to Shelf. And it's going to ask me if I want to change the name of it. It really doesn't matter. And if I want to open it as a separate window or as a separate tab. So it's up to you. I'll show you what a window would look like. So then I'm going to click on Add. And then what happens is right down here at the bottom of the shelf, it adds a little icon for that website. When I click on that, it will open up that website in a new window. Again, this is a little bit different than a tab. You'll notice there's no search bar, Google search bar up here at the top. So it really kind of makes it more of an app, and it allows me to go right into it that way. So I'm a big fan of keyboard shortcuts. So I'm going to show you one little trick as well. So I'm going to close this, and I'm going to drag this new icon that we just made all the way over to the left. So this is the first icon next to the launcher, and that's going to become important because if I hold the Alt key and I hit the number 1, it will open up that first shortcut. So I'm sure you can figure out what will happen if I hit Alt and the number 2, Alt and the number 3, and so on and so forth until I get to Alt 9. Alt 9 is the last one that I can open. And that just opened up YouTube because it was the 9th one in this list. So you can see how order would matter when you set up those kind of keyboard shortcuts to get to these items that are on your shelf. So next we're going to talk about managing windows and how we can split windows evenly on the screen. So now I'm going to give a quick example of how you can kind of manage windows in a Chromebook. So here I'm not talking about Microsoft Windows, I'm talking about different windows that might be open. So here I have a couple of things open. I have a video, and then I also have some kind of guided questions and some notes written, jotted down here on a Google Doc. So what I might want to do is instead of switching back and forth between the video and the notes, I can take the video and pull that tab out. So I'm just clicking and dragging that. So it's in its own window, and I know it's in its own window and the other window didn't disappear because I can click on that little maximize or restore button, and you can see that the window is behind it, and then I have a window up front here. So I might want to work on them side by side. And there's a couple of different ways to do this. One would be to click on really anywhere on this window and drag it all the way up into the corner. And then you'll see that the screen splits perfect 50% here. And then what I can do is I can go to the other window and I can also drag that, or I can hold Alt and use the bracket keys. So those are the ones next to the P on the keyboard. And I can hit the left bracket, which will move it to the left, or the right bracket, which will move it over to the right. So I can split things again 50-50, or if I want, I can grab the center here and drag it over, and I can have a smaller video screen and then a larger document screen. So there are different ways that I can kind of manage windows that way. So I have another kind of tip to share with you. So this has to do with taking a screenshot of your screen. So a screenshot is just a picture of what you have on your screen, and that's really easy to do on a Chromebook, but I don't know how many people actually know it. So all you have to do is hold Control and then hit that overview key, which is again the one that's above the number 6 on the keyboard. And what you'll see is a little pop-up will appear that says that a screenshot was taken, and if I want to click on it, I can, it'll drop me right into the folder that it was taken, and they typically go into the downloads folder on the Chromebook, which does not sync with Google Drive. So if you need to move that into Google Drive, please make sure that you do so. But here is the picture itself, and then up here you'll see a little pencil icon that I can go into, and I can do some things like crop or change the brightness of it, and I can kind of do some basic photo editing things right here on the spot. So that is taking a screenshot of the entire screen. Now let's say I just want to take a screenshot of a portion of the screen. So all I would do is hold Control, Shift, and then hit that overview button again. And what you'll see is the mouse changes into like crosshairs and the screen goes a little bit gray, but I can click and drag around the section of the screen that I want to capture. And when I let go, it takes that screenshot. And again, just clicking on it so we can see it. Here is the screenshot that it took of just that portion of the screen, the portion that I told it to capture. So an app I'd kind of like to revisit now that we have touchscreen devices is called Google Keep. And this is a great app in the past just as a basic note-taking app. So I could just jot down a couple notes. I can also turn this note into a checklist that I'm able to kind of make a to-do list or whatever I would need. But with the addition of a touchscreen device, this gives us some other options to take notes, like handwritten notes. So here I'm going to click on this little pen icon, and that will allow me to really quickly and messily draw a real quick handwritten note. Or another option is to do a new note with an image. So here I pulled a real quick picture of a skeleton, and when I double tap on that picture, you'll see the pen button up in the top right hand corner, and I can click on that. And that allows me to go through now and label the different parts of the skeleton. So here I can write skull, I believe that is a skull. And then I can zoom into this part and write fibula, because I believe I remember what that is. And again, this is just a really nice way to use the touchscreen to kind of do some quick labeling or some annotation of different either pictures or screenshots that you've taken of documents. There's a lot that you can do, again, with Google Keep. So give it another look. And if you want some really bad examples, feel free to reach out and I'll be able to help you out with that. So one last tip or trick or just reminder is that now that we have these touchscreen Chromebook devices, there's really no reason why you have to be tethered to the front of the room to use the desktop device that's connected to the smartboard. So I highly recommend, again, that you revisit the conversation about using the Chromecast. So if you go to my website, techcoachz.com, and go to Google Apps, and then you scroll all the way to the bottom, there's a section that says Google Cast for Education. It takes you right to the Google Cast for Education help link that will show you how to set it up. I mean, it's really, really simple. It's just a matter of kind of clicking on this icon here, giving your receiver a name. So we'll say Room 101, saving that. And then you can give your students access if you want. If not, you can just close that. And when you are ready to cast, you would just click on the three dots and hit cast. And it's really that simple. And then you'll select that receiver, the Room 101 receiver. So it is extremely easy. I am hoping that with this device, it'll be really, really consistent and stable. And again, please reach out if you need any help, if you want to explore this. Again, as far as being able to get up out of the front of the room and kind of navigate around the room, I think this will provide you with that freedom. So again, please reach out if you need anything. Thank you so much for kind of digging into this Chromebook crash course. I hope you learned something and I hope you enjoy your new device. So have a great day and talk with you soon.